And yes, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Henley Town Council's Recreation and Amenities Committee. Today, Tuesday, the 2nd of March, which is also my mother's birthday. Happy birthday, Mum. I know you're watching. First item on the agenda, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence, please, Town Clerk?
We have apologies from Councillor Paul Isaac.
Thank you very much for that.
I should also say, sorry, we also have apologies from Councillor Sarah Miller, and Councillor Michelle Thomas is substituting this evening.
Of course, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? I see none, so we move on to item 3, public participation. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak, Town Clerk? No. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, which is the minutes. First is to approve the minutes of the Recreation and Amenities Committee meeting held on the 19th of January. Are there any queries or amendments, or would anyone like to propose them?
I'll move them.
Thank you. All in favour? Thank you very much. That's carried. And now to receive and note the minutes of the Putting Green Working Group meeting held on the 25th of January. Are there any queries or comments regarding those? I propose we move them from the chair. All in favour? Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 5, which is the progress report, which you will find on page 11 of your agendas. I'll go through these one by one in case there are any queries, but obviously there is an update on the progress report for each item. So I will move swiftly. Fairmile Chapel, First Chapel. CCTV at Makins Recreation Ground. Donation of a Slovenian hayrack. Riverbank repairs. I actually just wanted to mention here to get a steer from the committee, if you like, as we look to do some riverbank repairs, and we obviously have contractors in the area. I've been speaking to a few interested parties about possibly having some access into the river in the form of steps towards the top end of Marshmallows or another suitable location. And I've done a small amount of research on this so far. And I just wanted to steer of the committee if you felt it was a viable thing to sort of bring back to another committee. I've got some information. I need to get a little bit more information on it, but it would be sensible if we were going to do a project like that, or were minded to do a project like that, that we do it at a similar time as we're doing other works, which would obviously reduce the costs. Anyone like to then Councillor Plant?
I think safety-wise, like an access point in and out of the river so that people can get out is great, but just as a regular river swimmer, that main stretch to encourage access for either swimming in is just the amount of like A, rowing boats, and B, traffic boats that use it, which is why most of the swimmers walk across the weir and get in off the meadow, as it were. So like, if it was going to encourage more people just to access the river there and swim, I could see it could be problematic. But as a safety point, I think it's a good idea.
So it's the area that initially sort of discussed with people is the area just before the little wooden footbridge. It's sort of shaded by natural trees, and it's quite a steep bank, but it's a shallow area and it's off the main navigation and could be buoyed off. So it could be a safe place to have a similar. I don't know who will remember the old swimming baths that we had on the other side of the river. So in a similar vein to that, really. Councillor Hooper and then Councillor Eggleton.
Are you talking, Kelly, of like just like a ladder access to the river, or proper steps?
I was thinking at that point it would need to be proper steps as opposed to a ladder. There is a ladder going in by the River and Row Museum, but this would be more. It wouldn't be like an ornate staircase into the Thames. I'm thinking just more practical. So people could bathe or do open water swimming and that kind of activity, but also get out of the river fast if they needed to at that end.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Eggleton?
Yeah, I was going to say that it's a good idea for access if someone falls in the river or, trying to get out of the river. especially if someone falls in on a boat, easily accessible out of the river. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I'd just like to say the all down that stretch of the river, there's weeds in it underneath the water. Now, surely that would frighten a lot of people off of getting in there and trying to go swimming or whatever. Just something
Certainly
to
there
look
would
at.
need to be some information from the Environment Agency, and they would need to support it. And I would need to, but I didn't want to spend the time doing that work, knowing how, frankly, how busy Becky is already. There's just no way I could ask it of her either. But I didn't want to commit to that work myself either without a steer from the committee that there was a sort of general consensus of approval. Councillor Plant.
I think, like you're mentioning, a buoyed off area in summer too. That'd be awesome. That'd be really, really cool. Like, it doesn't need to be big, but just a little bit to say, you know, you're welcome to paddle and stroll and cool off here and hop back out. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'll bring back some further information then. There's no need to vote on anything. There's no decisions to be made. I just wanted a general steer. So thank you for that. I will now move on back with the agenda and the progress report on page 11 as we were. Provision of toilets at Makin's Recreation Ground. Lido Working Group.
Kelly,
Councillor,
can we? That's going to stay on there. Stay on there. This the toilets for Makins. That stay on the agenda, and obviously until after the COVID.
yeah, so until we can hold a suitable consultation and reach as many people as possible, because the last consultation we didn't feel was a true representation of the
Okay.
town. So once
you.
we go big,
Yeah.
do it. Okay, Lido Working Group. Welcome Wall.
Kelly,
Sorry, Councillor Eggleton.
have they got appointed someone for that? There's like I said, I know there's a local artist, and I've seen some pictures of what they can do. And if it done in the old style of like the old historic town, which is what they've done on a wall in someone's garden, I think it's fantastic the way what they've done and captured the whole history of Henley on that. If this is on the wall at the pavilion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. If they could do something like that there, I think it would look very in keeping with Henley.
We are moving forward with all of the signage and everything. So perhaps if you could pop the details across.
Yeah, I'll send these pictures over and the person.
All right, brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Eggleton. Moving on, cycling at Mill and Marshmallows. Mill Meadows canoe hire. Councillor Clark.
If they're going to repair the riverbank, can we extend it out into the river so we can have a cycling path and a footpath instead of building onto the grass itself? I did bring this up at the last meeting.
Councillor Hooper.
Yeah, I can come in there. No way will the Environment Agency let you build out onto the river. I mean, and the cost would be financial. I tell you, really, really expensive. I mean, at one stage they were charging £50 for one pile. So God knows, forget it.
I mean, it is a very busy stretch of river. It would be something, I suppose, the Environment Agency would be the deciding authority on.
Yeah, it's just not feasible.
Well, if they're going to pilot, John, where the bank is now, it's still going to be £50 a sheet. So why can't they go out?
I mean, you're talking of even going out farther into the river. You can't do it. They won't let you do it.
All right, fine, if that's what you say.
Maybe you could inquire with the
I'm telling
Environment.
you, they won't let you do it. Listen.
Councillor Clark, if you feel strongly, perhaps you could inquire with the Environment Agency.
Thank you.
How they feel. Shall we move on now to agenda item 6, the finances, which you will find on pages 13 and 14 of your agendas. Are there any comments or questions? I think it's all okay.
That's right.
As expected. So can we note those? Everyone in favour of noting those? Thank you. Now move on to agenda item 7, which is town hall fees. This report was written by you, Sheridan. Is there anything you wanted to add to it?
Not really. I think the report is self-explanatory. Yes, it's simply to provide a fairer charging policy and to encourage longer hires, which as we come out of the pandemic, we will really need to try and boost our hires and commercial income to relieve the pressure on other areas. And they should help to do so.
Thank you. Councillor Crook.
I did discuss this, but could we not approach TV companies if they'd like to hire the town hall so we could have it for television, some sort of television income? Because like Midsummer Murders or any other ITV productions.
We could, it's something that, yeah, we can do.
Yeah.
Councillor Arlett, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Chairman, just one quick question. We've obviously reduced the figures to an all day or an all evening. I was a bit concerned, obviously the costings, heating, light and staffing would still be the same, probably more staffing. Has that all been taken into consideration with these new figures?
Yes, it's been, I've consulted with the town hall team, with town and community, who obviously used to manage the buildings, and I've spoken with the information centre as well, and they're all in agreement that they believe the figures are fair and reasonable and cover all of our costs and would give the council a decent profit on top.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, well, the recommendation in 4.1, it's recommended that the committee resolves that the hire charges for the town council's hireable rooms remains unchanged for 2021-22, but that A, the proposed day and evening rates be introduced as recommended, and B, the town clerk be delegated authority to negotiate individual rates for customers making a series of 10 or more bookings. I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Plant, all in favour? Thank you, that's carried. We now move on to the last item on the agenda, which is the payment methods for the temporary moorings. Becky, you wrote this report. Did you want to add anything to it?
No, not really.
Sorry to put you on the spot. I just wanted the opportunity to put my phone on silent because it kept beeping. So again, this seems pretty straightforward. Obviously, as you'll remember, we only discussed this in October when we appointed district, not as in SODC. That's the District Enforcement is the name of the company. Councillor Lambert, you're on mute.
So the proposed payment methods, I noticed they do all require your technology. And I just wondered what would happen in the inevitable event that someone drops their phone in the river and says they can't pay.
Okay.
Has anyone thought of that yet? Or because I would definitely drop my phone in the river.
There are other devices. Most people have a number of devices. I think it's certainly with what's happened over the last year with the pandemic and everything, a lot of things have moved online, and I can't think of anyone that doesn't have an online method of payment off the top of my head. Even the people that struggled at the beginning of the pandemic that we helped as volunteers locally, you know, it's everyone that is on a boat in particular must be used to these kind of payments up and down the banks. Councillor Arlett, Mayor.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, and I'm going to pick up on Councillor Lambert, I think there are still a few dinosaurs around, and I think we somehow you're going to have to make exception there, because as Councillor Lambert said, they're either going to drop their phone in the river or they're not going to have a phone, and that was obviously one thing. So I would prefer to look for some kind of other payment. The other thing is as well, obviously the majority will go with a smartphone or a payment via their phone. You may want to take this into confidential or not give the answer, but how often are the new company going to go up and down the towpath and check that people have paid?
It's infrequent, the times. I don't know exactly how many times a day. Perhaps one of the officers might be able to answer that before we move on to one of the other councillors' questions.
They'll be visiting daily, and I imagine in summertime it will be the same, same as the park. So
yeah,
mornings and late afternoons, but in winter it'll probably be less.
Councillor Eggleton.
Yeah, it was apparently it was two to three times a day. That's what I was told when they were first instructed to do it. Because I said, how would they catch people that people are avoiding tickets and stuff like that? And they said that they would go out and check to see if the tickets are in their windows on the boats.
Councillor Plant.
2 to 3 times a day is pointless because it's for overnight anyway. You can moor along there during the day for free. So as long as someone checks in the morning, which is what SRB and most people that check moorings do, they wander along in the start of the day. You don't need to pay just to tie up during the day, as far as I consider it, or as far as I think I'm correct.
We don't charge on the day, no.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing is, I understand Glenn and Ken's point, but we do need to move in the modern age. And again, most people who are making an overnight mooring are tech savvy enough to run the boat that they're currently using to travel up and down the river. I'm sure they have access to a phone
or a card, or something. Yeah, it's in an absolute emergency. I suppose you could say they could pay in cash or but it's taking it away from the parking machines, which that's the added layer of confusion. And also with the signage going in and everything as well, it just makes sense to have this simplified. Town Clerk.
Thank you very much. The estate manager or parks manager might be able to confirm this. My understanding is that these payment methods would mirror quite closely what the Environment Agency are doing or are moving towards. Therefore, boat users would be familiar with just having these methods of payment. That's my understanding, but they may be able to clarify.
There are definitely other moorings up and down the Thames that are completely cashless. And I think also the ability for us to be able to monitor our moorings more easily, and also be able to monitor them remotely as well, and be able to see at any given time, who's where and who's paid. The benefits outweigh the potential very minor risk of someone not, like you say, dropping their phone in the river and not having any other device, or not being able to use somebody else's device in order to pay. I think would be a very small risk. Everyone has gone silent. Is there anyone else that would like to ask anything or make a comment? Councillor Eggleton.
When you get these hotel boats that moor along, do they pay the same amount of money as just the normal people that are mooring up?
In our policy, all commercial boats are required to ask permission, or if they're over a certain size.
Yeah.
Councillor Plant.
Propose we go with the recommendation. Seems straightforward, seems good. There's going to be the odd issue and glitch, but I'm sure it'll overall smooth things out, so let's go for it.
Thank you. I'm happy. Councillor Crook, are you seconding that?
I just say, could we not just do something if they're in dire need that they can't get to a machine or anything, that we can make a discretion?
Yeah, I'm sure we can resolve any issues that arise, but I think it's a very minimal risk.
Yeah. Okay.
So are you seconding that? Or Councillor Eggleton, are you seconding that?
I'll second it, yeah.
All of those in favour of that proposal? That's carried. That was the last item on the agenda. Thank you all for attending this evening. I'm not going to be able to talk for a further 10 minutes in order to win our little bet on the timing. So Donna's Councillor Crooks won this time.
Did you almost beat your record of 19 minutes? Like, that was pretty good. Like 21 minutes.
Well, the agendas are so light because the amount of work that Becky does behind the scenes, and Carl, is phenomenal.